Does your unworthiness wound keep popping up again and again? Do you still feel shame and self-disgust from your past that just doesn't seem to go away? Yes, we do heal in layers. Yes, we are going to face it again and again. But what if it still stays stuck? Why is that happening? Is it because we're actually self-sabotaging? Are we unconsciously choosing this old familiar identity because we're afraid of our new unknown identity? My name is Angela Cleary. I'm a feminine empowerment coach. I specialise in healing after narcissistic abuse, and I also offer twin flame and spiritual guidance. This is the thing. Our wounds are deep, and we're carrying this unworthiness and this self-disgust and this persecution wound, not just from this life, not just from childhood, not just from past relationships, but also from past lives as well. It's also known as the witch wound. So it is going to pop up again and again because all our wounds are deep, and when we do our healing, it's going to surface layer after layer. So it is going to take its time. But for me, it was like, how long do I have to do this for? And my unworthiness wound was deep and deep and deep. And I've done the witch wound healing, I've done persecution wound healing, but it came up again, even deeper, a self-disgust wound. And I was carrying this, and I'll explain how I didn't even realize I was self-sabotaging. But I got a hypnosis last week, and in it, my fellow coach who was doing the hypnosis, she mentions I'm self-sabotaging because my wound keeps coming back up. Initially, I was triggered. In my head, I was like, fuck you, I'm not self-sabotaging. But then I was like, why am I triggered? And I was like, I get it now. My old identity is something that sticks with me because it's so familiar. And it's because I don't know if I deserve a new identity. What does that mean? Like, I went through, like, when I dug deep into when I discovered my self-disgust wound, I realized I carried shame from my childhood, from my parents, from my upbringing, from past relationships, from mistakes I'd made, from things that were done to me. I felt shame for. I felt like I was damaged goods. I felt like no one could ever really love me because of my past experiences. And I went through this a lot, and I was like, your past doesn't define you. You're not your past. You're not your childhood. You're not your parents. You are who you choose to become. We feel that our unworthiness is our own. We feel that we're not enough and that we were born this way. And this is another thing that we have screwed into our minds. I was born this way. But that's not true. You were born a clean slate. You learned all this behavior. And I've said this before, like simple things like I was born in Ireland, so I'm born a drinker. Or I've heard so many Latinos say I was born into a fiery Latino family. That's where my passion or my aggression even comes from. And it's like, no, you learned that behavior. For example, for example, if you say that I was born into an angry family, like, I'm Irish as well, we're very angry people. You see, there's an identity. We're very angry people. You see, this is the thing. It was like I was born into an aggressive family. I was born around alcohol, so I was born a drinker. Do you know what I mean? But what if I hypothetically was adopted into a posh family? Not from Ireland. Would I have been born a drinker, or would I have learned their traits? But we hold on to this identity because we think that's all there is. We don't think that we can change. We don't believe that we can change. So when I started to evolve, when I started to heal, and when I started to shed those layers of my past, those identities of my past, I had to start embodying my future self, the purest version of myself, the healed version of myself. And I suffered severely with imposter syndrome. So when we're like stepping into a new reality or a new identity, we start to think to ourselves, oh, no, I don't belong here. Oh, I don't belong here. And it's like, I'm going to go back into the old identity. And this happens. For example, if we're going through addictions or behavior. So like what comes to mind is, say somebody trying to change their ways and they're an alcoholic and they're a thief or whatever they are, this kind of darker energy. And they try to change, but everyone around them still looks at them like the delinquent. So, for example, Bart Simpson in The Simpsons, right? You look at somebody like they're a delinquent all the time, but then they try to change their ways, and you're like, you never fucking change. You were always this, and you were always that, so you're always going to be that. So, like, somebody who's trying to go off drugs, but everyone around them is like, oh, you're just going to relapse again. You're nothing but a worthless piece of shit. Like, you're going to identify as that and you're going to be that. Like, for example, in my narcissistic relationship, I kept being called a fat, useless C word over and over again. And I became fat and useless. Do you know what I mean? And like, literally, it's just like, you identify with your environment. You identify with the what you learn. So I identified my whole life with being an unworthy, useless piece of shit. That's effectively how I felt at a core level. Now, I was taking that on from shame that I had from my parents, shame that I had from my upbringing, shame that I had from my past relationships, but shame that I held from my witch wound and persecution wound from past lives. So I was carrying a deep-seated shame from being burnt at the stake by witches are just independent women who didn't want to conform and be a slave to a fucking man. That's what witches were. And like, that's what we're literally shunned for being ourselves. So in this life, we're literally in this energy of, I'm shameful, I'm been shunned, I'm not worthy of love. And this is what the self-disgust wound was telling me. You're too disgusting to let anyone love you. And it's just like, this is an identity that I was holding on to. And I was trying to shed it. And, as I evolve and grow into my new self, I can embody the person that I'm becoming, or the person I choose to be. So my new identity is, I don't take drink or drugs anymore. And I respect myself now. But yet there's a deep core wound saying, no. You can't be that person. You can't step into that unknown energy. You can't be anything but that useless piece of shit that you think you are. And that's embedded within me. And it was only because of the hypnosis last week, it was like self-sabotage. I'm like, how am I self-sabotaging myself? How I'm effectively choosing to stay stuck. Now, I know it's not a conscious choice. I'm not sitting here going, I want to be a useless piece of shit for the rest of my life. I want to be damaged goods. I want to be disgusting. I want to be unworthy. I'm not sitting there saying that. I'm not. But there's a part of me deep within, saying that I don't deserve anything but the identity that I came from. I don't deserve love. I don't deserve to evolve. I don't deserve to feel good about myself. And that's because the self-disgust wound, the unworthiness wound is so familiar. It's something I have known my whole life. And to break away from that, it's difficult. So there's a part of my unconsciousness choosing to stay in that identity because it's what I've always known. So this is the thing, like, you hear people say, I was born this way, take me as I am, I'll never change. So in other words, I'm a toxic person and I'm not going to change my toxic traits because I don't believe that change is possible. And that's what people think. They think that change isn't possible. They think that we are what we came from. I was thinking that's what I was. And, I didn't even know this wound was here. Like, I knew my unworthiness wound was there from, childhood abandonment. My mother left when I was a kid. And, I grew up with alcohol in the home, aggression in the home. So there was a lot of unworthiness and pain there, and then the unworthiness from my past relationships, right? But there was actually a deeper layer. I was carrying, we carry ancestral shame as well. So I was carrying my mother's shame, I was carrying my dad's shame, I was carrying probably my grandparents and, other families' shame as well. And not only did I take on their shame, I also felt shame for being born into certain dynamics. So I was like, how can anyone ever accept me when this is where I came from? But a part that effectively is saying that I am my past and I am my parents. But I'm not. We're not. We're not, like, we don't have to, like, we see this as well. Like, you could judge a person based on their upbringing. You could judge a person based on who their parents were. So, a parent is a criminal or a thief or a murderer or whatever. Doesn't make the child the same. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes, yes, we can learn behavior from our parents, but we don't actually, like, you don't have to be the same. Like, it's funny, like, because me and my brother were very close age-wise, and we grew up completely differently. I grew up and I ended up succumbing to alcohol and addiction, and my brother rarely drinks. Do you know what I mean? And it's like my dad was an alcoholic, so I actually took on some of my mother's life and some of my dad's life, whereas my brother is the opposite, and he's been in a loving relationship for over 10 years, whereas I had toxic relationships. Do you know what I mean? So there was completely opposites there. So you're not your parents, but I identified with the wounds that I had to I'm breaking the generational cycle. I'm changing the dynamic anyway. So my job is to heal it. But like me and my brother grew up in the same environment, but yet his life is completely different to mine. So, you can't actually say we are our environment, or we are our upbringing, or we are our past identity. We're actually, and I've seen this with many people, like you've got two different, two siblings, and they come out to complete opposite, even though they grew up in the same environment. So that's proof you're not born this way, or this is just how I am. You get to choose. You get to choose every single day who you want to be or who you choose to become. And this is the thing. And it's not about faking it. It's not about like turning into someone you're not. It's turning into somebody you were always meant to be. The only reason you held the past identity was because it was a persona you adopted, but it was learned behavior. And what can you do with learned behavior? You can unlearn it and relearn something else, or newly learn something else. Do you know what I mean? Like, for me, like when I started to step into the new world, the new identity, the new Angela, I actually used to say, I think there's an alien inhabiting my body, right? I started to do things that I never did before. But when you're living in a past, like I was living in a trauma bubble. When you're living in a trauma bubble, you're like literally, you're in fight or flight survival mode all the time. So you don't evolve and you don't see outside that bubble. This is your identity and you stay stuck in it. So when I started to evolve out of my trauma bubble and started to become a new person effectively, which isn't what I was doing. What you're actually doing is shedding the old false mask, the false identity, to become who you actually always were. So that's the thing as well, right? We're holding on to a persona or an identity that we think belongs to us, but it actually doesn't. Our real identity is the identity that we're unfamiliar with, the identity we were before we learned this behavior. You know what I mean? We literally, who we are is who we're becoming. So it's about learning to shed the false identity. And I think this is the hardest part for our subconscious mind to understand, is we think our old or current, whatever reality, our identity from our past, our childhood, is who we are. It's not who we are. It's actually just a mask, a persona, an external thing that we learned. The unfamiliar identity is the one that we should be familiar with, because it's who we truly are. And this imposter syndrome, I know, and I still get it sometimes. And this is the whole thing of me holding on to my, unconsciously holding on to my past wounding. It's scary. It's like part of me is so stuck in the identity of being damaged goods that I'm like, am I even allowed to be pure? Do I not have to be ashamed of my past for the rest of my life? Do I have to identify as the person I was? Like, is that not what I'm supposed to do? How do I identify as this new person? And as I said, this new person isn't new at all. It's who we're supposed to be. And it was only with the hypnosis last week when I know I'm self-sabotaging, I can heal it. But if I don't know I'm actually self-sabotaging, I'm like, it's just a wound, I just need to heal it. And I can't heal it because I keep going around in circles. And when I realize there's a part of me that is causing this wound to stay longer, and I know that might trigger some people, but we are part of the problem. There's a part of us holding on for dear life to our old identity, our old environment, the people that no longer serve us, the energies that no longer serve us, the work or the environments, the community, the whatever it is that's no longer serving us. And we're holding on for dear life to something that is so familiar, but is just not right for us. Like, we grew up learning toxic traits. Like we might say that we've been in toxic relationships, but we've also learned toxic behaviors, not just from our childhood, but also from those relationships. A lot of the things that we've been doing in our own world has been toxic. We were the gossips. We were the ones talking behind other people's backs. Because we were in those environments, not because we're bad people. If you're surrounded by gossips, you end up being a gossip. As I've said this before, if you put a good apple into a bowl of bad apples, you get a bowl full of assholes. So if you continue to stay in the bowl of bad apples, or the bowl of bad energy, you're going to become that. So that's the identity that you adopted because you were in that environment for too long. And you're stopping yourself from moving forward into this nice, shiny rainbows and unicorns environment, the environment that you've always belonged in, because the old is familiar. And it's like, even though you're trying to heal this wound or these wounds, there's a deep part of you saying, it's familiar, it's comfortable. Do you know, if I stay here, I don't have to take risks. I don't have to jump into the unknown. What if I don't belong in the unknown? What if I don't belong as this nice, shiny, pure person? Do you know what I mean? Like, what if I don't belong in this new identity? And that's what keeps us stuck. That core belief that we are our past. That core belief that we are our childhood. That we are our parents. That we are our environment. And yes, you do become a product of your environment. As I just said, we learned all that behavior. But you can change your environment. And that's what I started to do. I started to change my environment. I started to embody the person I wanted to be. And as I said, I thought there was an alien inhabiting my body. I was like, who's your one? Like, do you know what I mean? And I was just like, it's just so weird. But I kept doing it. I kept unconsciously doing these new things like they were normal. And that's why I said there's an alien inhabiting my body, because I'm enjoying these new normal things or these new things. But yeah, who's doing the stuff? Because I don't do this. Like, but I started to drop all the stuff I used to do. The drinking, the drugs, being around the wrong people. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, now I realize the alien was my past self, and the person I became is who I feel comfortable being most. But even though I'm now evolved into my purest self, and I'm still learning, I'm still getting there, there is still that deep-seated feeling within me that I'm not good enough, that I'm not worthy of love, and that I'm not worthy of this new happy life. That's still deep within me. And when I realized through the hypnosis last week, I was like, the reason it's still sticking around is because I'm allowing it to still stick around, because it's familiar. And because I think if I hold on to that, I don't have to venture into the new world, which is fucking scary. Do you know what I mean? So there is that part of me that's like, stay stuck in the old. This is where you belong. And I'm like, no, not anymore. And I'm choosing not to be the person I thought I was. My past does not define me. Like, you know, we can make mistakes. We can do wrong things because of our environment. But once we atone for them, once we don't repeat, once we can actually safely say, I'm sorry I did that, I feel regret for that and I won't repeat it again. Do you know, that's enough, because we're not sitting here going, I did something bad, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to hurt more people. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. No, you're making conscious decisions for your life and for the people around you. You're literally saying to yourself, I choose truth. I choose sovereignty. I choose love. I choose not to do things that hurt myself or others. You know what I mean? So you can change. You can evolve. And you have to stop holding on to an identity that was never even yours to begin with. You know, we made mistakes. We did things based on our level of understanding, our level of knowledge, and our level of fucking wounding. Do you know what I mean? So what we did back then came from pain, came from suffering. But as we heal and grow, we can safely make decisions that come from power and come from love. So if you're making the right decisions for you now, then you don't need to hold on to that old identity. The cage door is open. It is open. And we're literally sitting there going, oh, it's familiar in here. Maybe I'll stay here a little bit longer. Oh, it's grand, you know, it's fine. It's grand. but you're suffocating. You're suffocating in an old world that is no longer for you. Everything seems to be going wrong around you. Like there's like a storm going on in the cage, you know, a massive storm going on in the cage, shaking. It's like, get out, look, I opened the door for you, get the fuck out. And you're still kind of going, no, it's like effectively, right? It's like saying, right, I'm sick and I'm going to go to the doctor and they're going to offer me medication, but I'm not going to take the medication because I'm just going to suffer in my symptoms for another week or two. I might take them next week, or I might get outside the cage in a week or two, or I might do something to help myself in a couple of weeks. This is what self-sabotage is. It's like literally being handed the medicine, being handed the key to the cage, and still going, nah, that's fine, I'll suffer on. Do you know, I'll suffer on. And it's like, fucking stop suffering, you don't need to suffer. Get the fuck out of the cage. There's fucking blue skies out there. There's rainbows, there's unicorns, there's everything out there. But you're still in this storm inside this cage. That's what we're doing. We're literally inside the storm of our old identity, refusing to leave it. I know it takes time to heal. I know it takes time to understand our wounds and to release them. But towards the end, it's like it is a choice. It's a choice. Do I want to identify with this past? Do I want to still be in this familiar old identity that's fucked up? Or do I want to get outside that cage? Do I want to spread my wings and fly? Because it is a choice now. A lot of the times we stay stuck longer than we should because it's familiar. And we're just afraid of the unknown, or we think we don't deserve the unknown, or we don't deserve this happiness. But you do, and you always have. You're unlearning an old identity and remembering who you are truly always meant to be. So thank you so much for listening today, and I really hope this resonates. If it does, please like and share, and please subscribe to my channel so I can reach as many people as possible. If you'd like help on your journey, please book me for a free discovery call today. I would love nothing more than to help on your path. Also, I have another channel called Aligning with Angie, where I share a guided meditation every week. The info for that is in the description box.